Hello and welcome to the Block Explorer. I'm Colin Brightfield.
Hey folks, I'm Cash Upton.
The Block Explorer is here to educate and inspire you about the world of crypto and NFTs.
We'll do deep dives into critical concepts for understanding what's happening and discuss the current events shaping the space.
We're making this podcast for the curious, the free thinkers, and the change makers that propel us forward.
As we embark on our adventures, remember that none of this is financial advice and crypto can be risky.
In this episode, we give you an update in the world of NFTs as we touch upon the state of NFTs in the Ethereum ecosystem. Check out some autoglyphs, artwork that's generated on the blockchain with art blocks. And then we dive into some of the updates that are happening on other blockchains with NFTs.
Yeah, let's dive right in. A little news in the NFT world first. Twitter just announced that they're going to show an NFT blue mark verification next to your profile and be able to link your wallet and be able to actually prove ownership of NFTs through Twitter.
That's really cool. You know, someone actually just brought that up to me the other day about saying, hey, well, yeah, if you can have an NFT that's like essentially a JPEG, can anyone just right click save or screenshot it and then put it as their profile pic? And my response was, well, there's a lot of social pressure in the crypto and NFT world not to do that, just because that's kind of like a no-no. It's really taboo because people can check, your Ethereum wallet. Yeah. But for the people that are new to crypto, new to NFTs, they don't know that. They don't know that you can like easily check. And maybe some people won't. But it is really cool now that there's a way to verify that you're the owner through Twitter. That's really cool.
There's a really great bank list that had the DC investor on it. And it was a really great one. Anyone who wants to kind of get a deep dive into thought process behind NFT curation, they should listen to it. But one of the things that I really took away from it was NFTs hitting the blockchain is really building out furthering the decentralized economy past just swapping tokens in decentralized finance. There's actually like a social art element. There's a cultural element coming to the blockchain, not just financial.
Yeah, that was a great episode because he described the value proposition of NFTs and the utility beyond, because a lot of people, they don't really get why they're valuable, and I think DC investor, he saw that they were their potential early and he started, collecting them and he thought they were cool. So he ended up buying like a bunch of CryptoPunks when they were all about like 1 to 10 ETH, which seems even kind of expensive back then for a JPEG, a pixelated JPEG of a CryptoPunk, but now they're, 200 ETH, etc. So he's kind of scored by being early and seeing what was going to happen.
The way he put it, making a cultural premium bet. What do people find interesting? What will influence the artists of tomorrow that is being created today? And how are collectors going to look back onto this set? And that's how DC put it. And it really couldn't have been said better.
Yeah. And the way he looks at it is these are kind of internet relics. They're kind of history of the internet. And if you look at it, too, it's like, when did the internet really start? Right. We might point at like, oh, well, it was when someone sent the first email, or when, we had dial up, or when we had Facebook, or when we had, there's no one point you can pick at like when the internet started. And maybe the internet's actually kind of just starting now. Maybe this is another revolution where we didn't really have digital property rights until we had the blockchain. And now we have this way to thinking about coming back to this Twitter idea with the blue check mark. It's like you literally have digital property rights that you can authenticate on the blockchain, on Ethereum or on another blockchain. And it proves that who owns what. And before we couldn't do that with any type of real security and certainty. So we have a new world that's now open to us where we have the internet of value, and NFTs are just another expression of the internet of value. Just like text files or Instagram sharing pictures is the internet of information, right? It's content, right? Blogs, what we're doing now, podcasts, it's content. We're creating content, we're creating information. But what NFTs do is they allow value to be stored on the internet in a new kind of way that can't be funged, can't be faked, And that's allowing for a whole new ecosystem to flourish that we're seeing now with the art that's being created, especially with art blocks.
Yeah, I'm glad you brought that one up. The generative art is one that I think is, really going to be there to stay. And the fact that it's kind of a mixture of an artist working with a coder and then part randomness, transactional luck based on your transaction hash number code, and it spits out generative art. One thing that DC Investors said about the autoglyphs is that they mint it directly onto the chain, right? So all the data and information for that generative art lives on the blockchain.
Yeah, that's a good point. So some NFTs, they store their data in some kind of centralized database that's not on the blockchain. And why is this important? It's
Well,
important because
that centralized database could go down. It could get taken down. It lives on the basic internet right now, Web 2,
yeah,
right?
so it's just a database that's owned by a centralized company or entity, and you're kind of trusting them to have their servers up and running to send that metadata to the wherever the NFT is stored on the blockchain. And so that opens up risk vectors, and it's also, kind of against a lot of the values that we hold dear in crypto as far as decentralization. So you can have solutions where the actual art or the files that are needed to create the NFT, like, so if it's a piece of art, say like it's a JPEG, like that actual JPEG might be stored in some kind of native decentralized blockchain app that lives on the chain. And there's a few of those that are in development right now. There's one called Arweave, and there's another one called Storage, and they're doing exactly that. So it's really cool. We're seeing this whole way of internet, the transaction of hash codes, and how these databases are built, and these decentralized ways of the blockchain is pretty much eating the internet. Like there's the old internet where it's like, okay, well, like Amazon will have this database, or Facebook will have a database, and Google has a database, and they don't share those databases, and they just keep them closed, and they're all owned by a centralized company, and they just mine all that data for themselves and keep all that value. And now we're shifting to where we have databases spread out across the blockchain, and it's there open to anyone to look at. You can see what's on it. And that's how we can have these authentications of Twitter can check, oh, well, Crash, you own this NFT. We'll give you the blue check mark on your Twitter profile. But interesting to note, when Twitter does that, they're kind of centralizing something, right? They're centralizing, oh, they get to be, Twitter now gets to be the arbiter of like who owns what NFTs. So, I mean, it is kind of like this weird catch-22 where it's like, oh, it's kind of cool that they're doing that, but now they're also kind of adding a centralization vector.
Right. And Twitter does have its own history of, being really up and coming with new technology, and but it does bring up the point of centralization. And
like why does Twitter get to decide if, like, what if
Twitter
doesn't give you the blue check mark, but you own the NFT, and they just don't do it because, I don't know, maybe there's a bug, or maybe their team is lazy, or maybe they have something against you,
Well, and so, Twitter is centralized; it can block people.
Yeah. I mean, so I mean, I hope I'm sure there is some kind of decentralized version of the blue check mark verification for NFTs that someone's making. And I hope that they launch it, and that becomes the way that we check, instead of having like a big social media company be the arbiter again of certain things.
Right. And that's really, where we want to put our time and our money, and it speaks volumes of where the power is going to be held.
Exactly. And this is why I want to go back to the generative art, because I think it's really cool when you think about the idea of creation in that generative art, right? So you have, like you said, you have the coder or the artist, right? It could be the same person. It could be a team. It could be maybe a visual artist, and maybe they're not that code tech savvy, so they partner up with someone who can code. Maybe it's one person, or maybe, or a team or a collective, but they create an algorithm, and then that algorithm spits out some kind of art based off some kind of input, right? And you can choose what that input is. It could be the transaction hash. It could be the wallet address of the person. And then when they go onto the website and they actually click the button that says mint, right? That the art's not created yet. It's just some code, the art, the idea of what the artist had. And then when you go and click mint, it creates the piece of art. So this is a new kind of art that only can be created on the blockchain. And I think that's like where we're kind of talking about is we actually have a new medium. It's like when photography was created, or when, this dance was elevated to a high art form and people took it seriously. So we have a new kind of art that now all of a sudden people are recognizing as a serious movement and revolution in art. And that's why I think these pieces are really special. And I think, they have long-term potential. Like you said, it's here to stay.
Would you consider a crypto Venetian generative art?
Of course. Yeah.
Yep.
Yeah. So those are a great example of generative art. So they made, the inputs, they had 200,000 different inputs or traits, or 200,000 different combinations, right? But only 690 or 1,000 were created. Uh, and then we look at, any of these, if you go to artblocks.io, it's just a great experience to go look at some of the generative art that's been created there. And they have three different versions of collections. They have the curated collection, the artist playground, and the artist factory. And to be on the curated selection, I think the waiting list is like 2 years now. And like you have to apply. So that's another thing that's cool, is like there is some kind of quality control being implemented by the Art Blocks team to make sure that the artists they're featuring, are putting out something that's quality, that fits their standards. And I think this new kind of art is special also because it's in limited collections, like you said. So it's like 1,000 or 80 or 500, a couple thousand, but there's not a ton of them. I mean, maybe 1,000 seems like a lot, like in a collection, but when you look at it, like 1,000, like of this art from this artist for the entire world is really not that much.
And you have that market because of the internet and because of communication now. The whole, anyone who has access to the web can potentially purchase this art.
Yeah, exactly. So, you think about previously, like in traditional art world, you have to have an auction or you have to go to a gallery. I mean, it's hard to get that many eyes in front of your art right away. And especially like the price discovery and figure out how much people are willing to pay for it immediately, like on the fly, 24/7 around the world. That's what NFTs let artists do. And then you don't have to ship the piece, you don't have to send it. There's all these other benefits. But I mean, going back to this, there's only one of it, there's 1,000. What if you could buy like a Picasso, and you knew Picasso was only going to create 1,000 paintings, and you could just get one, right? And you could do it too while Picasso was still alive, right? This is what's cool too, is that these artists are able to capitalize on their art while they're living. Right? But, a lot of these other master artists, like they got famous when they were dead, and they didn't really get to enjoy the fruits of their labor. And a lot of them were like actually really poor, and their paintings didn't sell for that much. And so now it's like these artists, not only do they get to benefit, but then they get the royalties that get circulated with the smart contract. So they can get 10% of their sale price forever for any piece that they create or whatever it is. So that it's in the smart contract.
I love it. Our artist buddy, Kaya, who we're going to help mint, we had a pretty fun idea the other day, and I want to share with you. What better place than right here? In your will, when you pass away, you would have a generative art contract so that posthumously, as an artist, you can be creating generative art into your death.
Whoa, that's cool. I love
Everyone,
that idea.
you go to the, memorial service and you get to mint the generative art NFT for that artist or something, like
That's really, really cool. I love that. See,
Glad
this is what's cool about this kind of generative art, is that it's unlocks all these interesting possibilities, and we're just scratching the surface right now. And if you're interested in more of it, I highly highly recommend you go to artblocks.io and just poke around on the website and just see what mints have been created, and what the artists. You can go to their artist websites, you can see what they're thinking, and you can kind of, some of them are really good at writing out their process. And I'm really, really bullish on anything that's coming up from Art Blocks. If you actually look at the price history, pretty much anything that's been minted on Art Blocks just over the long term just goes up. So if you're also new to NFTs and you don't know what to buy, just try to grab something that's cheap on that's an Art Blocks project, and just hold on to it. Find something you think that's cool too. Of course, they have lots of options.
Yeah, that was another takeaway.
It's a pretty safe bet as far as like NFTs go, because it's kind of in that blue chip, quote unquote, NFT sphere where it's been validated and legitimized by the NFT community as a real form of art that
Yeah.
people are that we have real collectors buying. I mean, one of the most successful art blocks was Fidenza's. I don't know if you know about those, but they're really cool looking, and they're selling for 200,000 up to like in the millions now. So, and they started for point, I think they were point oh eight. I mean, they were cheap to
Yeah.
start.
Well, you brought up a good point too. At the end of the day, it's art, and you want to purchase something you like. You want to look at it and enjoy it. So, unless you're bullishly investing a lot, then really make sure that you like it and you like looking at it.
For sure.
We've been seeing some movement to layer twos with NFTs,
Yeah. So
specifically with Arbitrum.
yeah, exactly. Tell me more about that. What have you
So,
noticed?
well, specifically, a lot of gaming is going to layer two because we don't have as no gas fees, right? Super cheap to transact. So, for instance, there's a fantasy football, and this is like soccer football for us Americans, and they've been selling over $130 million in NFT trading cards. So they're going to be having a fantasy football platform on the blockchain.
Wow. The sport teams are coming. The sports leagues around the world, they are coming for NFTs and they are coming hard. And I mean, it's an obvious use case, right? I mean, you have sports playing cards, trading cards, it's baseball cards. It's been around for forever. So NFTs are just the digital version of that. It makes so much sense that that's happening. And I also just heard, I think So Rare, or was it? I think So Rare just raised another $600 million in fundraising to do European football teams, so soccer teams in Europe in the European League. So I think they're going to do NFTs for all of that too, and I think they just got a $600 million raise. So I think So Rare now, I think their valuation is $4.8 billion. So that's pretty massive for an NFT company.
Wow.
Yeah. So I mean, they're the sports teams are coming and they're coming in hard.
So for the layer two, Small Puddle, SMOL, Small Puddle is a marketplace on layer two. But then we also have an OpenSea integration with Polygon. You were playing around with that earlier this week, right?
Yeah. So there's I think, when we talk about these layer twos or Polygon and these other side chains, the reason that it's important is because these other chains have lower gas fees or essentially no gas fees. So the big complaint a lot of people have when you go to buy an NFT is you're like, why does my transaction fee like 50, 60, 70, $100 to buy this NFT that's only $150? I don't get it. And people get sticker shock, and that's a big turnoff for a lot of people. So layer twos, these are another layer of blockchains that sit on top of Ethereum, and they make the gas fees way cheaper because they don't use as much network space to run their transactions. They kind of carpool all your transactions together and then send them through as one. So it's like, doing a ride share versus just like driving yourself. The transaction fees are lower. And OpenSea does a similar thing with Polygon, where now you can, instead of just only using the Ethereum blockchain for NFTs, you can use the side chain Polygon. And that essentially does a similar thing where the gas fees are pretty cheap. They're essentially free. And you just have to wrap or unwrap your Ethereum into the Polygon version of it, or your DAI or your USDC, whatever you're using. But what's really cool, I think, is in general the big picture is that NFTs are proliferating, and you have a lot of people figuring out solutions to help them accelerate this adoption. People see it happening, the money's coming in hard, and everyone's looking for ways to make less friction, right? We don't want to always pay, like maybe for a really expensive NFT that lives on Ethereum, it's fine for you to pay a decent amount of gas fees, but for a lot of newer people, they might not have a big amount of capital to invest in NFTs, and they don't want to pay all their funds in gas fees. So layer
Right. Yeah.
twos, all this stuff is just bullish NFTs. People see where this is going, and they want to create the infrastructure to benefit from it.
Yeah. And if you're only spending $50 on an NFT, you don't want to spend $80 on gas.
Yeah, exactly.
We've been seeing a few, don't know if you want to call them copycat projects, maybe mimicry, against across different chains, right? So there's the crypto punks, but then there's also Solana punks, the Sol punks, and then there was the loot text on cards for the creation of a gaming world, and then Solana blockchain got the gamut. So like similar but different.
Yeah, so
What do
a
you
lot
think
of
about that?
people a lot of people just they see a project that was successful on one chain, and then they create essentially the same project on another chain. It's just what crypto people do. I mean, just like, in DeFi summer, everyone was just forking, essentially copying, pasting yield farms and just making another yield farm. And before that, people were just copying, pasting like different token code and just, having ICOs and initial coin offerings. And so this is kind of just what happens in crypto. It's the wild, wild west. And I mean, you're going to have, if you really want to have something that's open source, then you also have to let people copy. And people that are smart will figure it out. And also, I think there also is just a lot of space in the crypto world right now to have multi chains. I mean, we don't know which chains are going to end up being around 5 years from now, and maybe one of these other chains with some of these quote unquote copy projects will actually be ended up looking at as like more legitimate in some ways, or maybe they'll just take off more. I mean, it would be weird, but it could happen. So
Yeah,
I think, go ahead.
well, so I minted a Soul Squiggle, off of the same similar code as the Chromie squiggles, but it's generative too. So there's a little bit of a argument there that it's its own. But one thing that comes to mind is, talking about cross blockchain migration. You can wrap your Bitcoin and put it on the Ethereum blockchain. So NFTs would be able to be wrapped in the future, and you can take your crypto Venetian off of Ethereum and let it live in Solana for a little bit, if it wants to go on vacation. So like, yeah, but then again, we come back to the blockchain being a ledger and verifiable. So at the end of the day, people know which one was the original project.
Yeah, I think you hit the nail on the head. Is that this is all out in the open, the ledger's open, and legitimacy will tends to lend more legitimacy in this weird kind of positive feedback loop. So I think it would be really, really hard for some of these established projects to get gimmicked or copied away out of their legitimacy. Like, no one's going to make another kind of crypto punk or another Bored Ape Yacht Club that's going to take over and like be a copy of that's going to probably overtake that. I'd highly doubt that. Just like you can have people who take Van Gogh's style and make cool paintings that are similar to Van Gogh, but they're not Van Goghs, right? They don't sell for Van Gogh prices. So I think there's a great book by Austin Kleon. He has a TED Talk too. And he's an artist, and it's called Steal Like an Artist. And it's great because he actually goes back and he just kind of shows that like pretty much every kind of artistic creative idea is kind of based off someone else's creative artistic idea throughout history and all of time. And so there is also this kind of like creative evolution that we're all participating in with NFTs, and everyone's like, oh, that was cool over here, so let's try it over here, and let me just twist this here and add that here and put it on Solana, and that's Mimicry, I think it's part of the fun. It's part of the fun that it is this like big mix, and it's kind of chaotic sometimes, but that's also what creates like the beauty of it too, and it allows for this really rich environment that we get to explore together.
Yeah, mimicry is the finest form of flattery, right?
Yeah, exactly. It's a compliment. It's a compliment that they created a Soul Squiggles on Solana, and like
right. Like, that was a great idea. We should do it again. Well, as we're going to be finishing up today, there's a few other just NFT drops that we wanted to mention. So I'll start us off. One of my favorite newest drops was Rescue Mutts. And if you haven't checked it out, they're cute, kind of weird looking dog mutt NFTs, but 20% of the proceeds are being donated to humane societies. So they're directly giving nonprofit funds through NFT purchase.
Yeah, I'm a big fan of this marriage between NFT projects and philanthropic causes, and I think the more of this, the better. And I think it's a great look for the crypto industry as a whole, and it's also a fun way to create a narrative around some of these projects that give them a lot of structure. And I hope I see more of them. I know there's another one, like Rogue Sharks, and they're giving some money to prevent definning sharks, where a lot of sharks are killed just for their fins, for shark fin soup in Asia. And they're minting these cool looking sharks, and then they're going to give some of the funds to causes that prevent that from happening. And I think, in general, some people are like, oh, well, it's a great response when people are like, oh, like crypto is so bad for the world, or it harbors criminals, or it's bad for the environment. And it's like, you pretty much, a lot of those arguments fall flat when you can point out some of these amazing projects and just how pretty much from the get-go, they have a large chunk of the funds that they're donating to these causes.
And because it's all on the blockchain, it's all verifiable.
You can't just say it and then have some back-end corporate accountant like not actually do it, right? It's all right there. You can see, oh, look, they sent this many Ethereum to this nonprofit, and it's right there for everyone to see.
And there's a lot of new talk too about the carbon footprint side of it. And, when we move to proof of stake, that's going to go down a lot too. But even with that, you can easily make a carbon offset functionality of the smart contract. Every time this NFT gets purchased, a percentage goes back to this, reforestation project or something.
Exactly. I love it. Well, Cash, as we wind up this episode, what are you excited for?
I'm excited for our minting DAO, baby.
Yes, our minting DAO. That's awesome. Tell me more about it.
We are starting a service to help artists mint and get their art exposed to the blockchain world and share it with our community and help, make our artist friends not starving.
Fantastic. I am such a big fan of what we're doing, Cash. We created a DAO, decentralized autonomous organization. So it's a new kind of LLC essentially, but it exists in this new internet paradigm of Web3. And it's a way to organize around a shared values, shared causes. And this cause is supporting artists. So we're excited to collaborate with artists and help elevate their work and help them take advantage of this next evolution in communication, media, and art and culture. And we get to do that with you along for the ride as well. So thanks for supporting us. And let's wrap it up, Cash.
Yeah, we're excited, and we'll be sharing more about that in the coming weeks. So thank you, everyone, for your support.
That's it for now. We hope you enjoyed this episode.
Thanks for exploring the world of blockchain with us.
Crypto is changing the world. We're here to ensure you're ready.
So please subscribe and share this podcast with your friends and loved ones and enemies, and leave us a review.
We look forward to sharing our next episode with you.
Cheers.
Cheers.